Okay, so let's get started then. Congratulations on joining this session to improve your career and to get better with Java. And just to let you know, this live happens every Tuesday at 10 p.m. London time. And I know it's not easy to be here focusing on your career. So congratulations on you for taking the decision of being here. And today we're going to be talking about LinkedIn optimization, how to build a Java profile that recruiters can't ignore. And guys, LinkedIn is very important. I used to neglect my LinkedIn or my CV. And then what happens when we do that is that, for example, it decreases our chances of negotiating in our current company. Why? Because if your manager knows that you have only the option of the company, they will use this information against you during the negotiation. So that's why it's important to always show your manager, the company you're working for, that you have options, that if you want, you can leave, right? So it's very important to have this power in your hands, because otherwise you become basically a hostage of the company you're working for. So that's not a good situation to be in as a software engineer. It's much better to have the power position during a negotiation process. So in one way, one of the pieces of the puzzles that we have to work on is our LinkedIn profile. So we as software developers, the more we grow, we need to know how to market ourselves. And if you don't share your knowledge, if you don't have any way where you can show that you know your stuff, then the only way you can do to show what you know is through your LinkedIn profile, right? So the only people who know your skills, know that what problems you are able to solve, are the people inside your company, right? If you don't have any way to market yourself outside of your company, you are also in a weak position. LinkedIn profile, if you don't share your knowledge, is very important. And also, if you share your knowledge or if you don't share your knowledge, in both situations, it's very important. So we're going to go through some basics of the LinkedIn profile on what actions you can take to improve your LinkedIn profile. Let's explore the profile basics that stand out. For example, on the top of your LinkedIn profile, don't just use Java developer. It's better if you use keywords. So, for example, if you're a senior Java engineer, use those keywords. Why? Because, if you're a senior software developer, you're going to get opportunities for senior or maybe intermediate. But if you just put there on your LinkedIn profile, on the top of your LinkedIn profile, that you are a Java developer, then people don't know if you have experience. The recruiters don't know if you have experience or not. Microservices is also a good keyword, because I would say that more than 90% of the companies use the microservices architecture. Spring Boot is also the most used framework for Java. And if you have knowledge about AWS or Azure, that also counts a lot. You can also use even more specific words like Java Backend Specialist or distributed systems or Kafka, Kubernetes. If you have knowledge on those technologies, it's a good thing to add them on the top of your LinkedIn profile. And when I say at the top, so let me give you an example here. On my profile, for example, I did that. So you can do the same. And it's important to be specific here, senior software engineer. And on your profile photo, use a high quality professional image and use a banner which is connected with your profession. So in my case, I'm using Java Challenger. So you can use any kind of banner that has something to do with Java. That should be enough. Java, microservices, cloud computing, backend, engineer, something like that. And my photo here is also a professional photo, preferably smiling. Why? Because when you smile, you look like more friendly and more approachable. Therefore, easier for people to reach out to you. Makes sense, guys? You can answer yes, if that makes sense. So where can you find a professional photographer? I'm pretty much sure that you can find a professional photographer close to your house, right? You can go to Google, ask the photographer to take a picture from you when you are smiling, and that will increase your chances to get a nice job. So what are the keyword optimization for recruiters? So use keywords such as Java 21, Spring Cloud, Security, JPA, Hibernate, Kubernetes, Docker, AWS. Kafka Redis, CI/CD, Jenkins, GitHub Actions, TDD, Agile. So there are many ways that there are many keywords that the market values a lot. And sometimes the recruiters won't understand you. If you use terms like scalable systems, high performance Java, cloud native architecture, you're going to make your LinkedIn profile more likely to be approachable by recruiters. Avoid, for example, obsolete technologies. So, for example, if you worked many years ago with Struts or J2EE, like the old version of Jakarta EE, like those old things, nobody cares anymore, or very old code versioning. So if you have those kind of things on your LinkedIn profile, it doesn't make much sense. Or those words that are very generic, such as software development or software engineering, all of those words, they don't make much sense, because if you work with Java or Spring, obviously you are a software engineer. Obviously you work with software development. So I don't see that as a skill. It's so generic that it doesn't make any sense. So if you are adding skills on a LinkedIn profile, add something specific, something that makes sense on the context of a backend Java engineer, because that's what the market wants. The market wants a software engineer who is able to solve problems, right? And if you know more than one programming language, you can add those programming languages. You don't need to be locked into Java. You can also work with other programming languages, because we have to understand that Java is a tool, right? We love Java, but Java is a tool. If a Java developer wants to work with Golang or Kotlin or, I don't know, any other programming language, we can do that, right? And it's even easier for us to work with JVM languages. So we have to keep that in mind. So we're not only Java developers, we are software engineers. By the way, I went a lot deeper into this topic in my previous live video. And if you didn't watch it, I recommend you to watch it. And this point here, experience section beyond job descriptions. So this is a very important thing. And I ask you guys to do an exercise. Hello, Fernando, welcome. So, and I will also ask you guys to do an exercise here and think about your career. Think about the time where you created a high impact in one of your jobs. For example, like there is one situation here that could be similar from what you did in your career. So could be something like that. Optimized Java service latency by 40% using Spring Boot and Redis caching. So the companies, they really love to see numbers, because a consistent proof that you created an impact in one of your, or either in your current job or your previous jobs. So if you can be specific on the impact you created, if you can think about your career. During my career, I created a component and I reduced code repetition. And by doing that, I improved productivity from developers by 15%. So if it is a code repetition that happens in every application from the company, like this is very significant, right? You could say that you improve productivity by 20%, for example, right? The important thing here, when you write this on the about section of your LinkedIn profile, so I recommend you to write those highlights here, for example. So why this is important? Because it's something tangible. It's something that a recruiter can look at your CV and say, hey, okay, those guys really created a good impact. So I ask you to do this exercise now and think about the impact you created in any of your previous companies. Something you did to improve performance, something you did to improve quality, something you did to improve collaboration, something impactful you did in one of your previous companies or in your current job. Another example here is led migration from monolith to microservices, reducing deployment time by 60%. This is amazing. This is so much value, right? So if you were able to reduce 60% of the deployment time, that's a huge value you created for the company. So I want you to make this exercise, to think about it, because if you add this on your LinkedIn profile, your profile will be a lot better, right? It's going to stand out a lot more easily. So those impacts have to be quantifiable. For example, here, you could say that you improved API throughput from 10K requests per minute to 25K requests per minute. That's a very significant result, right? And you can say that you reduced garbage collector pauses by 70% as well. So if you did some kind of JVM optimization, also it's good to put that on your CV or on your LinkedIn profile. So another thing that's powerful to do on your LinkedIn profile is to write down open source contributions, count a lot on your CV. And you don't even need to do like big contributions, because usually to start contributing to open source projects, you need to start small. Don't start trying to create a huge pull request with a huge feature. If you do that, people will very likely ignore your pull request. So it's better to start small. And it's even better to start small because open source projects are usually complex. And if you go to the Spring project, for example, it's not easy, right? So a recommendation to you, if you want to improve your CV through open source contribution, I recommend you to start by the documentation. By starting by the documentation, one benefit is that you're going to be learning about the project. And for example, Spring is very complex. So if you start by the documentation, it's going to help you to understand the project. Nowadays, you can use AI to improve documentation. You can translate to any language you can imagine. And also, if you do enough pull requests and with simple things and small things, people will trust you. And when people trust you, then it's easier to create a bigger pull request, right? So, and if you add all of these contributions on your CV, on your LinkedIn profile, you are already ahead of 95% of developers, because most developers don't contribute to open source projects and they don't like to expose themselves. And that's okay. If it's your case, if you don't like to expose yourself, it's fine. Like true open source projects, don't expose yourself too much, but you have to be strategic. You can't all of a sudden create a pull request of a huge feature. You have to balance your pull requests, maybe start through the unit tests or go to a discussion and expose your ideas. Or even in some open source projects, you have some labels, like some beginner labels, where you can start from the easiest features, from the easiest tasks from this open source project. The good thing is that with a small contribution, it makes a big difference on your CV. Imagine having on your CV or on LinkedIn profile that you contributed to the Spring framework. That's a huge win and doesn't need to be a huge contribution. It could be a start for bigger contributions, right? Because if you have a very small contribution in the documentation or unit test or some syntax error, you can use that on your CV, right? And you're not lying. You did a contribution to the Spring project. So that's totally fine. And obviously, once you do this small contribution, do bigger contributions. Make a better contribution. Then when people know you and when people trust you, when people know that you're going to be around, people will be very likely to accept bigger pull requests. I also think about side projects. And nowadays, it's easier than ever to create side projects because you have the ultra powerful AI, right? We have AI. We can write code through AI, basically, right? If we don't know how to write a piece of code, we can say, hey, AI, write this thing for me. Obviously, like when I say that, obviously, I'm not saying that we should copy code and have no idea on what's going on. As software engineers, if we do that with AI, we have to know what's going on in the code, right? So every time we create code via AI, we have to read the code, understand what's going on. But my point is that nowadays, it's the easiest time to create side projects because nowadays we have cloud computing, we have AI, ultra powerful AI, like we can create anything we can imagine through AI. And, you know, it's a huge productivity booster. So we have to leverage technologies that are available for us. We can't say, hey, I want to use AI because, oh, that's cheating. No, it's not cheating. It's being smart, right? So if you use AI, you're going to be leveraging your time. I'm telling that use AI carefully. Obviously, I'm not saying that you should copy AI without knowing what you're doing. That's a mistake, obviously. as senior or as intermediate or senior Java developers, you have to know what's going on in the code. So if you get the code from AI, check the code, read the code, because reading code is one of the most important skills as a software engineer. So education and certifications. So they're very good certification for Java developers, such as the Java Standard Edition certification from Oracle. AWS certifications are also excellent, because on AWS certifications, you will answer questions from the day-to-day work. So how to solve challenges that will happen on your day-to-day work. So this is really good. Our certifications with Kubernetes is not very good for Java developers, because Kubernetes is usually a more important skill, more important technology for DevOps engineers. Like Kubernetes is a nice to have, okay? But I would recommend you to prioritize the Java certification and AWS certification. Those count a lot on your CV. And I would also balance the studies with Java and AWS with algorithms and system design. Why? Because the interviews nowadays are usually made the same way. They will always ask you coding challenges and system design. And if you're not prepared for those interviews, then unfortunately, your Java certification or your AWS certifications won't be very useful. And another very annoying thing that might happen in interviews is that if you, for example, don't know a data structure, or if you forgot like the depth first search algorithm or the breadth first search, whatever it is of those algorithms, or if you forgot some kind of concept on big O notation, like if you are in this coding challenge and if you forgot any of those concepts, the interviewer might send you a feedback. Oh, because you didn't know the red-black tree. Oh, fortunately, you were considered a junior developer. Therefore, your salary will be less. I know it's stupid, those interviews sometimes. And that's why we can't focus too much on those certifications, because otherwise, okay, we're going to get all the interviews we want. But then when do the interview, if you are not prepared for those code challenges or for those system design interviews, then it's very difficult, right? It won't work very well. So we have to keep that in mind. And we can also do courses like actually reactive programming. It's not that important. Well, it is important, but it's not that required. So like I would say here, like do courses on microservices, on Java, JVM, Spring, Go, Rhythm, system design, AWS. So those are important concepts, and also clean code. Clean code is so important. Like creating readable code is a very important skill for any intermediate or senior Java developer. Why? Because we don't write code for ourselves. And even for ourselves, if you write code like that is bad, in 6 months, or I don't know, even less, in 3 months, you can't understand your own code. That's very bad, right? So understanding clean code techniques, it's also good to maintain your code, because we read code 10 times more than we write code. Writing code is easy, right? Even more nowadays with AI. Like we can simply ask AI, create this code here. Like nowadays, we are not programmers. The programmer profession is already dead. It's obsolete. Nobody cares about a programmer anymore. What is valued nowadays? Problem solver. Problem solver is what the market values nowadays. Because a programmer, AI can be a programmer, right? Understanding the problem, that's real skill. That's what the companies will value on yourself, right? Even more for senior developers, because many times to solve a problem, you don't depend on your technical skills. You also depend on soft skills such as communication. Sometimes you have to do a meeting with someone to figure out what you have to do. Sometimes you have to do meetings with another microservice team, and you have to negotiate an API. You have to understand what data you're going to pass to them. Or for example, if you're exposing an API for another team, you have to tell them, hey, you're going to get this information. Is it okay for you? So you have to know how to negotiate with those teams. And, the more you grow, you're going to have to solve other problems beyond the technical level. You also have to be a little bit more political, right? When I say political, I'm not saying that you should lie. I'm not saying that you should be like an asshole. Actually, I'm saying that you should be always aware of the problems that are going on in the company and be able to help people and to create allies. So if you have allies, if you have, and when I say you don't need to be 100% political, right? Build real connections, right? Have fun. But it's also important to keep in mind that helping people to solve specific problems they have will help you to get a promotion, for example. Okay, so, and when you're doing courses, please don't only watch the course, you have to develop a skill. So when you're doing a course, if you have 2 monitors, that's even better because then you can watch the course in one monitor and then you can practice the concept on the other computer, on the other monitor. And, practice the technology, run the application, see if your application is being deployed correctly, invoke the endpoint, do some tests with Postman. If you're relearning a front-end technology, which I don't recommend very much, unless you're a full-stack developer, that would be interesting. And mostly if you're a back-end Java developer, focus only on those technologies here and implement the code because that's the only way to acquire real skill. If you're not doing that, you're wasting most of your time. When you watch a tutorial or when you watch something, it's good, obviously. But when you're developing a skill, you need to code. You need to open your IntelliJ IDE, start coding, see what happens, run your tests, and improve real skills. Because this is also a way to build experience, right? You don't need to have experience owning your job. Obviously, if you have a system in production, that's the best way to get experience. But you can also put your systems in production, right? You can create pet projects, like something like an idea, some kind of system that will help you to solve, a problem. If you have an idea, go for it, solve this problem, and, put this system in production, right? Deploy it in AWS, for example, and start using it. Okay, so another important point for LinkedIn profile is about engagement and visibility. So content sharing, that's a very important thing to do. You don't need to exactly do that, but will definitely be, for example, a content boost. Like it would be a LinkedIn boost for you. It's going to improve your visibility a lot. And by the way, guys, for you who stay here until the end, I'm going to share a form with you. And by filling out this form, I'm going to share this mind map with you. And then you can check those important points about LinkedIn profile later. Okay, so content sharing. One good way to gain visibility and learn technologies is by sharing what you know, right? And how can you do that? For example, if you're too shy, if giving a talk is difficult for you, or if creating a video is also very difficult, start by writing an article. And if you say, hey, Rafael, I don't have time, it's okay. Write an article a month, publish it on LinkedIn. And what I will recommend you is to start writing an article about something you are learning. So for example, if you're learning microservices and you want to consolidate this knowledge, why not writing an article about microservice? And as a byproduct, like beside really thinning out the gaps and really learning about microservices, you're going to be also creating a visibility on your LinkedIn profile, and recruiters will be a lot more likely to reach out to you. So, for example, you can share knowledge about situations you faced on your job that might help other developers, and that's really valuable. Why? Because it's your experience. It's something nobody can copy, right? So, for example, you could even write an article regarding your career highlights. If you had the career highlights like this, for example, where you improved the API throughput from 10K requests per minute to 25K requests per minute. It would be amazing if you write an article regarding the impact, because then you have an article proving that you did it. Then you can even link this article to your career highlight. And that's proof that you did it, right? So this is very valuable because this is something that can't be copied. Only you have your experience. Only you created an impact in your company. And those things are great because other developers can replicate what you did and they can do the same for their API that is slow. They will have these insights. They will know what to do. Obviously, there is also specific cases, right? There is case by case scenario, but that's a great way to prove that you did it. And another great benefit of doing that, of writing an article regarding the impact you created in one of your previous companies or current company is that you're going to organize your thoughts, and it's going to be easier in the interview because you're going to be able to tell this story to the interviewer a lot easier, because the interviewer might question you, hey, how was this career highlight you did here? Can you explain what happened? And then you have to explain. And once you have it written down, like all the steps you did, it's going to become a lot easier. The interview might be questions about something you wrote down. Might be the easiest interview ever. So also turn on the option open to work, but only for recruiters. Don't open it for everyone. So do this option on your LinkedIn profile. And you can also use those hashtags when you're posting something, Java development, Spring Framework, or cloud computing, because this will attract recruiters to look at your LinkedIn profile. And guys, even if you are not looking for jobs, even if you want to create a long-term career in your current company, it's also important to improve your LinkedIn profile. Why? Because that will improve your chances of negotiating with your companies. If you're negotiating with your manager and your manager is sure that you have no options other than the company, then you are in a weak position during the negotiation, right? And your boss can say, you might ask your boss for promotion, and then your boss knows that you have no option. And then what can you do? Like, your boss can say whatever he wants, whatever he or she wants. They might say, okay, like, I want to give you the promotion. Obviously, they won't say like that. Usually they will give an excuse. They'll say, oh, we lack budget now. Obviously, they won't say no. But when they tell you an excuse, they are basically saying no. We can't, allow other people to be responsible for our careers because we are responsible for our careers. And in my career, I made the huge mistake of thinking that, oh, if I do a good job, my manager will promote me. I was very naive. I thought things worked like that. And then I started seeing new developers joining, developers with similar technical skills than me, or even developers with less technical experience than me, with less knowledge. And they were earning the double, the triple, or 4 times my salary. Then I understood that other soft skills are also very important, such as communication, LinkedIn profile, negotiation, how to share my work, how to gain visibility. All of those things are very important. Networking. The thing is that those people who joined after me and who was even, like some of them was less technically prepared than me, they had better soft skills than me. So it really didn't matter how good I was technically. When I started understanding that, I saw, okay, oh my God, I was such a low-paid, underpaid developer. But then after doing mentorships, reading books, I started understanding the game better, how it works. And I was very naive because I was trusting that my manager would reach out to me, would say, Rafael, you're doing a great job. You're being promoted. This never happened, right? Never happened. And I had to learn this lesson in a painful way when I saw so many developers earning so much more than me. And I was studying, and nothing was changing. And then I had to step up and go to my manager and say, hey, I need a promotion. Obviously, it's not like that. You have to negotiate. I have to say, hey, I created this value. I brought everything I did. So you have to bring a good case. You don't ask for a promotion all of a sudden. You have to bring a good case. Say, hey, I created this value. I created this impact. I'm doing this and this and this. It is important for the company. I created this component. I helped the team learn this technology. So you bring everything to the table, and then the promotion might happen or not. And if they know that you don't have any other option, they might just tell you an excuse and say, hey, we don't have the budget. And then what will you do? You're going to be waiting forever for your manager to save your life. We can't do that. So a very important lesson from my career that I learned and then changed the game was at first that it's not only technical. The second mistake was waiting for people to save my career. It doesn't happen, right? So you have to keep that in mind. So content sharing is very important. If you can share a career highlight article, how you did this impact, that's great because then you have proof that you did it. And yeah, use those hashtags. Say that you're open to work for recruiters, not for everyone, only for recruiters. Okay. So, and that's it. And regarding recommendation, that's an important technique that I learned and it works very well. It's the reciprocity concept, which basically works. For example, if you do something nice to someone, they will be very likely to do something back to you. So why we are so hardwired to that? Because back in the days when we were cavemen, like there was different tribes, and sometimes one tribe would lack food and the other tribe would have a lot of food. And this tribe who didn't have the food would ask, well, they would receive food from this tribe that had a lot of food. And if this tribe didn't give food to the tribe that was hungry, this tribe would die. They would die, right? And so in this situation, the reciprocity principle is very important, because what happens if this tribe doesn't give food to the other tribe one day? What will happen is that very likely this tribe will never give food to the other anymore, and this tribe would die. So back in the days, the strong feeling of being reciprocal, it makes sense because it helps us to survive. So why I'm telling you this story? It's because you can use the same principle to get recommendation from someone. How can you do that? You have to first have a giver mindset. So you're not trading, you're just you're giving. And you don't care if you don't have any return, it's okay. The principle is that getting a recommendation is great, right? Because it's social proof. Like basically someone is saying something nice about you. It's not you saying things about yourself. It's, someone else telling you something nice. That's proof, right? That's social proof, and that's powerful. Because, for example, if I am here and I say, hey, I did that, oh, I'm awesome, nobody cares. But if someone else tells that, hey, oh, Rafael did great. Rafael, I don't know, like he did something amazing. I don't know, anything, could be anything. And I'm like, this is different. When someone tells something else, something nice about you, it's a lot heavier, right? It creates a much stronger impact. Whereas if I'm saying things like, how many speakers have you seen in conferences that they are talking so much about themselves and nobody cares, right? Nobody cares. People care on how you can solve their problems, right? So that's why social proof is so important. Therefore, a technique is that you choose someone who you respect in your company or even in previous companies, and you give a recommendation without expecting anything back. But at the same time, you say, hey, my colleague, it would be nice if you could give me a recommendation back. I would highly appreciate that. If you can do that, that would be great. And if you did something impactful in that career, in that company, and this person knows you did it, you can even say, hey, can you please mention the day I improved the request per minute from that very heavy API? And then if they tell you, hey, for sure, I can help you with that, then that's great, right? And I will say that something around 80% of the people who you do that, who you give this recommendation, will give you a recommendation back. So that's why I'm telling you to have the giver mindset, because some people want to give a recommendation back. And that's totally fine because, life happens to everyone. People might be busy. People might be doing something else. So keep that in mind. Just be a giver, give the recommendation, and they'll be very likely to give a recommendation back to you, right? So, and avoid common mistakes, like no buzzword overload. Like I said, don't include skills like software development, software engineering. If you have Java, Spring Boot, or AWS, obviously you're a software engineer. You are working with software development. And if you have those old things like Word, PowerPoint, remove that. You're a software engineer. Obviously you know that, right? So, and if you have old technologies and obsolete technologies such as struts or Ant or let me think, Java 6, all of those things, like if you have experience with Java 1.2, like this, like just remove that. Just put that, like Java 21, the latest Java versions. And also, keep in mind that what the market wants nowadays, well, AI is taking the world by storm. So if you know any technology regarding AI, it's good to have there. Although I don't recommend you to be your focus, because really AI won't help you in job interviews. Like they won't be asking you about AI concepts. They will be asking you instead about algorithms and system design. Some other companies will ask you about API design or reviewing code from a junior developer to see what you can improve. Some other companies will ask you about concurrency. Some other companies will ask you about your professional experience. You don't need to go through those annoying coding interviews. And even though they are annoying, they actually help us to be better software engineers. Why? Because when we are solving algorithms, we're also improving our problem solving skills, right? So we have to understand the problem. We have to plan the solution via comments. And we have also to explain our thought process to someone else. So when we're doing the interview, it's always like that. And then you have to do the big O notation. Sometimes you can improve, you can optimize the code even more. So you improve on your skills of being a good problem solver. Definitely. That's unquestionable, but it's annoying. We hate it, right? It's very annoying to do those interviews. But anyway, it's the game, have to play the game. So, and I like those vague claims, experience in Java doesn't make much sense. It's better to be specific, say, hey, build low latency trading systems using Java 21 and Chronicle Q. It's better to be specific on your experience, for example, on your job experiences. Be as specific as possible. That will definitely help you to be more visible for recruiters and to, so that recruiters can reach out to you and they can offer you nice jobs. That's it. Guys, thank you so much. I'm glad you have access. I'm glad you are here investing in your career so that, you get a promotion, you get another job. So thank you so much for being here. And I will be here the next Tuesday at 10 p.m. London time. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again. And also, I wish you a great week. That's it, guys. Thank you so much. Cheers.